Hello, welcome to the second live stream on colour mixing. And this is uh, painting, not digital art, which is relevant on today's live stream, as it was in the last one, because I had a bonus live stream for my new enthusiasm, which was colour mixing with Zorn Palette, a palette named after a painter called Anders Zorn, a Swedish painter. And this made use of limited amount of colours to mix all your colours that you're going to use from. Turned out not to be that limited a palette, but I showed you how to create a colour wheel from these three, what he was calling primary colours that he was using for his limited palette, and how to mix those with white to get all these different shades. So this week, we're going to talk about the standard palette, and then um, that was Wednesday's live stream. So you can't really talk about a palette that's a bit of a deviation from what we consider kind of the normal palette without talking about the normal palette and um, issues that can come up with the normal palette. So this is what you call the standard palette that artists use. And once you start studying this, I found it gets a bit weirder because um, on today's live stream, there's the potential for doing a lot of things. And one of the things is resolving deep held childhood traumas from early art incidents that happened to you in school. Because this standard palette, you would have learned about it probably doing little art things in your primary school as a young kid. And typically, where the trauma arises is in this part of this color spectrum around the violets and the purples. And the color purple has always upset me emotionally a bit. And colors have emotional impacts as well. That's one way to look at colors, but they also have a science to them, you know. And so you could think of these colors around this wheel as being on a spectrum, and the color spectrum could be laid out like a strip of film flat, couldn't it? Or we could just, for convenience sake, put the ends together and call it a circle or a wheel. Okay. But basically, we need to kind of understand this before we can talk about the childhood trauma of purple. And it'll become clear in a minute. So there'll be some science involved in sorting this mess out, and then some tweaks, because this live stream is about tweaking this to make it not such a limited palette, because this palette is also a limited palette. Because if you look, comparing it to the Zorn one, remember last week we had three primary colours in the Zorn one, and they were yellow ochre, black, and red. This week's one, we've got yellow, blue, and red. And typically, when you go to school, you turn up in school, or when your parents is teaching you art, um, you might ask, oh, I haven't got any color in any purple color in my watercolor set or poster page set, and some genius will suggest to you that you can make it yourself from mixing two different colors, and those two different colors would be red and blue. Great, says Sue. This is where the trauma comes in, because look at my red and blue here. When I mix them, they turn out these weird mucky colors that I wouldn't appreciate very much as a kid, because they're not that lovely, vibrant, purpley, violet purple that you want. So why the heck is that? Why can't I mix all these colors as I was promised? Because if you go over to the community tab where I've posted resources for you, three images that are color wheels. One of them is this one. The first one is my colour wheel that I've made, but the second one is the colour wheel upon which this one is based, and it's called the Munsell colour wheel. And the Munsell Colour Wheel shows your three primary colours as yellow, blue, and red. And we're going to do some mixing today, talk about the colours and why this Munsell Colour Wheel creates a lot of problems, solves a lot of problems as well. We can see how things are mixed on it okay, um, but some of the mixing goes a bit wrong as well. So why is that, and how can we fix it? How can we tweak it, right? So to answer that question, you have to go off and visit Isaac Newton and people like that and talk about the difference between light that's coming in your window and light that's created from mixing paints. And once you kind of understand the difference between those, it starts becoming a lot clearer. But limited palettes, well, they've got limited in the name. They can only do so much. But definitions are always a good place to start. So in the center triangle here is where it's all going on, right? And these are supposed to be the three primary colors. What's a primary color? Let's get a definition of that. Well, a primary color, if you look up the definition, they'll tell you it's a color that can't be made by mixing any other two colors. Okay, so it's a color basically the pigment for which you go and have to dig out of the earth or dig it out of the earth and do something to it or synthetically create it, but you can't make it as a mixture of things. Okay, that's the definition. But as a definition, we'll find out that that's a bit incorrect because the red you can get from different colors, and even the blue you can get from different colors. So um, if you can make the color from different colors, it's not really a primary. And some people will argue that this red, you make this red from a magenta, which is a violet color, which is supposed to be this color down here, which looks great when you look at the Munsell color wheel that I've posted on the community tab. But that color wheel, it's a lie, folks, because if you're mixing up the wrong kind of blue, you're not going to get purple. You have to know exactly what kind of blue to mix. But if you buy one of these color wheels, or you listen to your teacher in primary school show you the colors and say, okay, these are the three primary colors, and mix these to get these. If they don't tell you what kind of blue to use, you're never going to get a purple. You're never going to get a nice popping bright purple like this kind of purple over here, which wasn't got from those two colors together. So we're going to look at why that is. So that red can be made from magenta mixed with yellow. So, you know, it's warming up a violet color, really. And so it doesn't fit the definition of a primary color. So why did Munsell come up with this idea? And why is everybody so imprecise about what kind of blue to use and everything? Well, that's all changing very much, but you have to get into color mixing as an artist to get into the logistics of why this isn't correct and why they did it wrong in the first place. Well, it's all Isaac Newton's fault. Because Isaac Newton in 1666, he did a light experiment using prisms. And in my thumbnail today, I've actually done a little thumbnail that looks a bit like the cover of the Pink Floyd album, which I think was Dark Side of the Moon, which everybody used to have when I was a teenager. Loads of people used to have this as a little button that they'd, wear for, if you liked particular pop bands, you could buy a little button to put on to decorate your jackets with. And I'd never heard Pink Floyd, but I was very familiar with the button. And but I didn't know about Isaac Newton either at that age. So it's actually kind of based on Isaac Newton's experiment. And Isaac Newton was really interested in the nature of light. And he came up with some ideas about what the primary colours were, what the main colours in nature were coming in. He was actually hiding out from the plague in a darkened room and had a prism and got a light shining in through the prism into the darkened room, and the prism split up the light into a kind of a rainbow, if you like. So you got the visible spectrum of colours there all laid out, and you got a rainbow effect. And this is related to those ideas, although Newton's primary colours were green, blue, and red. But this is kind of based on this as the development of it, right? So that is an RGB model, a red, green, blue. And RGB model will be still used. And people who work digital artists would have a bit of a head start on some color theory. But the important thing to know is that there are two different models of color theory. Okay. Oh, hello. Nice to see you. Welcome to the live stream. Don't worry if you missed a bit because, you know, the live stream stays up and you can go back and see bits that you missed. We're talking about the um, standard color wheel, which is kind of a limited palette because it's got three primary colors. We're talking about how there's even a bit of debate about whether those primary colors are really the correct primary colors, because you'll find that you have color mixing problems. It's at different parts of the spectrum, you start running into little problems that you can't get colors you want and everything. So, really, why you have problems when you're mixing is because this model is based on what you call additive color. And Isaac Newton, back in the 17th century, his experiment was working with additive color or light, color created by light effects, okay? And his experiment is very interesting to read up about and everything. Highly recommended. I've been having a great time since Wednesday, doing a lot of reading about things, and I will do a lot more reading, I think, on this. It could become a minor obsession, but I have to look at the purposes we're using it for, which is for painting, right? Not just for entertaining ourselves, learning about it. So, um, if we're looking at this, we're going, well, okay, if the colours coming in Isaac Newton's window and split up through the prism into a little rainbow of colours, if that rainbow includes violet, why can't we get violet? Okay, in our mixture of blue and red. It's because ours is paint, it's not light. Okay, and some of the paints, when you mix the colors together, they'll absorb light. And the more you do mix things, the more light is getting absorbed and it's not getting refracted back. Now, Newton could, with light, he could actually split it up into different colors and then get mirrors involved in things and then join the colors back up again into a straight line of white light. So the additive light he was using, uh, additive color he was using, all the colors when mixed together would result in white. In this scheme, for artists working with paint, we mix all the colors together, we get black, right? And so that's a subtractive color, that's called. It's the difference between Newton's uh, color ideas and our color ideas. Is one is, all the colors together make white, and this one is all the colors together make black, because it's different. It's not to do with light, it has to do with particles and matter and everything. Okay, so I hope that makes some kind of sense. And we're going to do a little color wheel ourselves, right? And our color wheel is going to be a kind of a tweaked version of this Munsell color wheel, because we'd quite like to resolve our childhood trauma that we were talking about. The person who just arrived in chat might have arrived in after this point, but I was saying that when you go to when you go to school first and you're a little kid and you get handed paints and the whole class is using these paints and little kids tend to love purple, really bright purple. And you know say you've run out of purple and you say to the teacher, "Oh, I've no purple and I want purple on my picture." They go, "Well, mix blue and red together, dear." And have you had this trauma that you end up with something like this? And you get very upset. And so you say, "Okay, maybe if I add more red, it'll turn more purple." And it doesn't. Maybe I'll add more blue and it'll turn more purple. And it doesn't. You just end up with this mucky colour that isn't satisfying to the kid at all. And this childhood trauma, my argument is, stays with you into adulthood. Because if you're doing art and you go out to an art shop, you might see a colour wheel for sale. And it'll be Munsel's colour wheel, possibly. And you might say to yourself, "Oh, that would be a handy aid for mixing colour." And you buy it. And you go, "Well, the chart, not this one, but the one on the community tab that shows Munsel's chart, um, it shows a lovely purple in this spot, or violet if you want to call it that. But you mix it yourself, you think you've done something wrong." So that's a trauma you can experience as an adult as well. So we want to work on that trauma today, and we want to get a nicer purple like this purple. So how are we going to do that? Well, there's a way to do it, okay? And the way you do it is you replace this blue with another blue, and you replace this red with a different red, and you're more likely to get a purple. And where are we going with the blue and the red? If you look at the way this color wheel is organized, things go, this is a blue over here, right? The point of this triangle points to the same color out here, right, in the inner circle. So that's a primary color, and we've repeated the primary color out here. Then we've mixed white with it to see what that looks like, a bit brighter. Then we've mixed black with it here, just because we were doing the same with the Zorn one. But if we mix the blue with the green, we're ending up getting greener over here. And what we want to do with our blue is replace that with a more cyan blue, which is a more greeny blue, right? And we're going to be getting a better purple in here. But we're also going to have to replace the red with a magenta, which is a more violet coloured red. Okay, it's more towards this direction rather than here. And then our colours start looking a bit better, right? Now you still can't get um every single colour you need. There are going to be times when you're going to need really warm reds, or you're going to need a different green in your palette, or a lot of people have two yellows in their palette. They might have a lemon yellow, and I've actually made up that today, especially for this live stream, um, a warmer cadmium yellow. And that's because this is a limited palette. It still doesn't give you the entire range. It's better though. What we're doing is, I would argue, getting a better understanding of mixing color. So we're going to get the compass out again today. And what we're going to do, I have just a rough of it here. If you look on the community tab, you can also find this, because like the Zorn one, I wanted you to be able to draw this yourself. And you could actually figure out how to do, if you wanted to do, a standard color chart for yourself, which is a great mixing exercise, even though it's not terribly satisfactory in this end of things. And the greens are still a little bit muted. They look very vibrant in relation to the Zorn greens, but you could actually get more vibrant greens with the cyan replacing that blue. So this was done the same as the Zorn one for getting the 12 segments, and I show you how to do that on the previous live stream. And then we just put a triangle in the middle, pointing to sector 1 and sector 5 and sector 9, right? Then we split them up those triangles halfway across and ran a line out, so that right out here in the middle of 3, we put what we call the secondary colours. So here's our primary colour yellow, for example, right? And we've repeated it out here. We have it in the triangle, and we've repeated it in section 1 here. And if we mix yellow with the red, this little triangle here represents what you get, and that is called a secondary colour. And this is the scheme we learn in schools and everything when you're learning anything about art. And a lot of us vaguely remember this, right? So we had put the secondary colour right in the middle between those two colours out here. There's your yellow and there's your red. So the middle of the triangle points out to 3. What happens either side of it? Well, you can probably guess that you're going to mix up a colour that has a bit more red in it because it's beside red. And then to this side of your secondary colour orange, which you got from red and yellow, you're mixing up a mix that has more yellow in it because you're going towards that yellow side of the spectrum. And then you continue doing the same thing. So obviously you'd fill in your complementary colours first. You fill in your primaries out here first at the points, using the points of the triangle to guide you. Then you get secondary colours into another triangle and run them out. So that can be that's easy to draw the triangle without using any kind of, just need a ruler. But how to do this outer, split the circle into 12, I'll show you in the previous live stream. So we're going to be using a compass again today. And as I say, this is a different way of, I'll show you the rough for this. This is a different way of representing this. This is a notebook that I have a lot of chess things in as well, so pretty messy, but this is the rough for what I'm going to be doing. And there's a better image of it on the community tab in the 3 photos I posted today for reference for this live stream. And this is from a guy writing about mixing for painters, specifically for painters, in the 19th century. And this guy's name is George Fields. And this is an 1841 diagram, not mine, but the one on the community tab. And I liked it because it's all made up of intersecting circles, and you've got your primary colours around the outside of the circles. Then you have your secondary colours, which on this one were represented that way with the triangle, but you've got the secondary colours represented where these overlap, you see. So that's a secondary colour in there, that area. And then as it goes further in the circle, there's more mixing going on, but we get the main thing down. These are brilliant exercises. I learned a lot from this one, because learning about the limitations of something teaches you a lot about the thing. And then you go, well, how do I solve that problem? And a lot of art is just solving problems, you know. So we're doing this in order to solve the problem of what's wrong with our purple. So I want this to only go out the same width on the page. So I'm going to make it a slightly smaller circle than this one. We're going to start with this inside circle to draw this. And we aren't going to make this a work of art, okay? This page. I just want to make sure I make the circles small enough that it can fit on the page. So I'm not going to be super careful about this, but we have to have something to draw our colours in for mixing. I want to get onto the mixing. Let's get that in the middle so you can see it as well. So our middle circle there, that's our first point, okay? So now what we do is we do a second circle. It doesn't matter where you go on this circle, but you pick a point on the outside of that circle. And you should notice, if you've got it on the thing, should notice it's going to intersect with the previous point. So I have actually put a little pencil mark in for my first point so that I don't lose it. You see, the thing slips around there. And we're going to have 6 circles on this. Oops, see it's slipping around already. Hang on. If it slips, just go back to the original circle to line it back up. Okay, so that's our first point there. And our second point was out here. Okay. Third point is either over here or here where they intersect. And this is what we're going to keep doing. I just make sure it goes through the middle, yeah. They all have to go through that middle point or it's going to be all over the gap. So 3 circles we've got now, and I'm going to keep moving around to the outside edge of the first circle where it intersects with the circle that you just drawn. And don't criticize me too much because this isn't a geometry lesson. Have mercy on me. It's slipping around like mad. Sorry. There. I'm actually slipping off the point because it's not particularly sharp compass either, but it's near enough. There. And nearly finished. So this is a quicker thing to do. But I had to actually do all that talking at you so that you would understand how Newton's colour, which started, I mean, it started before Newton, the investigation into colour, but how his experiment with light and prisms affected people making up colour wheels for artists, and why the colour wheels are a bit inaccurate is the difference between Newton working with light and us working with paint, basically. So we have this in now. So now we're going to refer to the colours that we have here to get more information, right? We're not going to worry about the middle of there's a little circle in the middle there as well with all the colours mixed together. We're going to work from the outside in. So we're looking at the first circle, the third circle, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th circle. 1, 3, and 5, the way we were doing before, okay? And it's going to be a yellow, red, blue. But we're going to make it a bit different this time. So circle number 1, 3, and 5 are the ones we're going to be working. Now, finally, we can get the paint out. And this should look different from this one when we're finished doing this. We should be able to see the differences fairly swiftly, hopefully. So yellow, and I have mixed up a yellow for this. So what kind of yellow is it? As far as I can establish, I cannot find a name for the yellow in gouache or acrylic, but it's I haven't got it like definitely pinned down, but it is seems to be between a lemon and a cadmium, because some cadmium yellows are very orange, and if you're a digital artist, you can be a bit more exact because it's the yellow that has all the F's in it, which is like a true, they call it a true yellow. But for some reason, with art pigments, I suppose it's because there can be variety in the pigment density and things like that. I'm going to just move this down very slightly so I can get at it a bit easier. The colours can vary wildly, so you're kind of judging it by the look of it as well. And when I'm doing research for this, doing the research on a screen, and unless they give me an exact colour, it's hard to know. So, like, I'm a student of this as well, you know. So, some bits I'll get wrong, some bits I'll get right. But this looks like the color to me. And as I say, I didn't have a cadmium yellow that wasn't a very orangey version of cadmium yellow, and I didn't want that orange. I knew I didn't need that orange. Now, I'm not being particularly finicky about this. I want to get color down. Okay, so that's our yellow, primary, a primary color. Now, next color we want is red, but this is where we start solving our childhood traumas, okay? I feel the healing happening, folks, because people think kids are thick sometimes, but this is the sort of thing that as a kid would keep you awake at night, lying in bed going, why couldn't I get a purple? Everything says, all the adults say, and they even have diagrams of it, how to get this purple color from this red and this blue. And they all say that you can get that, right? And I can't. There's something wrong with me. Well, it's either they don't, the teacher doesn't know, or they don't want to explain it. They have this, some of them have this attitude to kids that they go, oh, that's too difficult for a kid. But, a kid would probably love the conversation about Isaac Newton, to be honest with you. Now, I'm going to grab another colour here. And this colour is a very purpley, you'll get a shock when you see it. I'm going to just put a tiny bit of red in it there. Look at this colour. This is a magenta. It's actually just a mix I've made up, but it's a magenta colour. Compared to this colour, it's quite different, isn't it? So, it's a bit of a reach calling that red. So, we don't even bother calling it red. We call it magenta. But on the community tab, the guy in 1841 realized that the use of this magenta was far more effective on a colour wheel for artists than talking about using that red. So we are going to put the magenta in sector 3. And already, can you feel it, how we're getting closer to our purple and resolving our childhood hatred of purple? That's probably where my hatred of purple comes from the annoyance of not being able to get the colour and it bothering me. I don't know. That's the story I'm making up about it. I'm sticking to it because I like that idea. Some shades of purple, I really don't like. I can't, I wouldn't be able to sit in a room that's a violent purple. I used to have a jersey that was a particular shade of purple, and it was this shade of purple here. Actually, this is very similar to it. I'll show you my jelly gouache set. That shade, and it's reading very slightly blue. That's better there. It's not reading that well, that colour. The other colours are reading okay. It's even more violent than that. Of course, I'm looking at the thing on my phone screen. How you see something on a screen is very different as well. Now, I was talking about digital artists and how they have a head start. So if you're an artist that works digitally as well, and I'm saying as well because I'm guessing that people watching me probably do either do both, or if you're purely digital, you mightn't be as interested in watching my streams. I don't know. Maybe you find them relaxing or entertaining, or maybe I'm just flattering myself. I don't know. But digital artists will be going, magenta, I know that, because they're very familiar with the idea of using magenta as a primary colour. So say, for example, when you're talking about printing things out, or you're buying printer ink or something like that, CMYK, or you're doing something on the computer with Photoshop, and you're doing color corrections, you're using CMYK color system, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The K is K actually indicates black, so you don't get it mixed up with something else. Can't remember what. Now, so now we have magenta instead of red. So this is the same as this, it's just laid out differently. Got our yellow, and we've got our red. We're just laying it out in circles instead of the triangles. And the CMYK system, you're getting all your colours from those colours. That's a limited palette as well, but you're getting all the other colours from it. Now I have to make sure that I clean this brush really well, because that's quite a vibrant staining colour, that. And my third colour is going to be a blue. But look at the blue I'm going to choose this time, because I'm going to choose this blue instead of a kind of a cobalt blue. Or actually mine is more of an ultramarine, to be honest. But this blue is a cyan blue, which is a more towards the green side of things, going that way than going that way around the wheel. So this is where the wheel idea is useful, because you can see what colours are analogous or beside each other on the wheel, as well as what ones are opposites. So this thing of putting, taking a spectrum of things which could be represented like film strip out flat, and putting the ends together and making it into a circle is quite handy in terms of these color contrast, seeing color contrast, and opposite colors, which are called complementary colors. And complementary, we don't use that word in that way all the time, do we? Complementary sounds like, something getting along with something, doesn't it? Give somebody a compliment, that color complements another color. Sometimes we think that means, if we were talking about, somebody's clothes or something, we think that means, oh, she's got a pink that goes with the red nicely or something. But actually, it's opposites. So green and orange, on the color wheel, opposites. This one, your man that did this looks like he was working in watercolor. It's the field guy that did this originally. And I'm looking at the screen here now with my community tab open to copy this from. Because you see, you can he's using watercolors, and it actually works well with watercolors as well, because you can get the bits to overlap well and cut out a lot of the work. But I'm just doing it in gouache, because I have the other ones done in gouache, you see. So I had interrupted myself to say something else I thought was relevant, then went back saying, no, I'll say the other thing first, because I finished that point, then forgot the second thing. So I'm just doing the outside circles first, although this primary color carries on. It carries on inside the rest of the circle as well. But I want you to see those primary colors separately. So there they are right there. And you can see how that cyan is very different from this blue. Now we'll start creating a few mixes for secondary colors and see how we get along. have the blue loaded already, so I might as well do the secondary color here, the green, with the same brush. So this is going to be kind of a half and half mix, but it's more just do it by eye than anything else. So look at the green we're getting compared to this green. It's a lot more vibrant because we had different starting colors, you see. So already the color is looking a lot less disappointing. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say you could go and just look at these colored wheels or buy these colored wheels. And a lot of people do that. But I would maintain that making them yourself and what you have to go through to make them yourself, you are participating more in your learning about those colors by having to produce them yourself, because you're also thinking through them at working out the problem as you're going along for yourself in a way that the problem is kind of solved when you're just looking at an image of the things. And I don't know that you've really taken it in. There's also the extra thing that because painting is a hands-on activity, you're going to remember how to do these mixes much handier than you would just looking at a picture. Oh, I'm picking up some red in the brush from the previous thing and see a tiny little bit of red turning up. This is the problem when you don't clean your brushes really well. And when I was doing this color wheel, you would not believe how many times I had to go into the bathroom and clean the brushes and change the water and everything. So if you want to do that color wheel, watch out for that. Watch out that you're not working with dirty brushes and introducing dirty color into other colors. Okay, so this color that I've just made is a secondary color. Okay, that green is a secondary color. And a secondary color, just to go back to descriptions of things, definitions of things, is a color that made mixing two primary colors. And a primary color is supposed to be a color that can't be made from mixing any other colors. You can't produce. Now, it turns out that there's a whole thing about, whether that choice of primary colours really are primary colours or whether this is a bit nearer to primary colours. So, you could get very interested in all this and go off and read up a lot about it. Or you could just say, okay, well, I'll just kind of go into survival mode and just be aware of these things. So, already you're being aware that you probably get a nicer, zoomier green by using a cyan blue, which is more towards the green end of things than the violet end of the colour wheel, than you would from mixing the blue that we had been using, which is more cobalty kind of ultramarine blue. Now I just want to test that I got that colour off, and I didn't quite have it. The cleaner cloth here for wiping as well. I have a wet cloth here, which is very handy for cleanups. Okay, so we've got one secondary colour down. So let's work on getting another secondary colour. And another one of our secondary colours, if you look at this Munsell one, is orange. And we can see that that's made from our red and yellow. And in this case, it's going to be made from magenta and yellow. I'll just put it the right way up so that it's the same way up as the other diagram was. So yellow and magenta this time. And I have my yellow mix. And I'm going to grab a bit of the magenta. and try and produce an orange. And it's kind of a half and half mix. Okay. I did say it isn't an exact science. I lie in a way, because working on a computer, it's an exact science. Working by eye, it's not. Because one is working with light, computer works with light, and we're working with paint pigments, which absorb light and don't reflect it all back. But you know, the color model still works and everything okay, by using the model that we use for digital art. There's our orange. Which I haven't got completely pure either, because my my brush still has green on it. So sloppy this week compared to, you know, the other charts that I did, because there aren't as many factors to handle in this one, so I don't mind being a bit sloppy. You get the idea much easier with this one. It doesn't have to be as precise for you to get the idea. I mean, we're going back to fundamentals. You know, most of you would know how to mix these colors, but the point I'm making is that we're looking at the difference between this standard color wheel that is the one that we have stuck in our minds from childhood and this color wheel, which, unless we've done a lot of digital art and have printed a lot of things out and, you know, understood why those colors work and everything, you know, and there is theory behind it, you know, we might get confused about, well, I really don't understand why that color wheel, the standard one, isn't working the way they promised me it would, you know. So now we have our another secondary color, orange, which was made from our magenta and yellow. And now we come to the moment when we find out, will we get a less mucky purple or not? And, you know, it's all very tense. Will it be any more vibrant than the mucky thing we had up here? Or will it be nearer to the one promised by the Munsell chart that I have on the community tab there? So that one looked like a lovely violet colour, a lovely violety purple. And we'd like to get something nearer to that. So it's the two colours we're looking at this time to make the violet colour, and violet just means purple in this context, are magenta and cyan. Now that cyan is quite a dark colour, okay, but so is the magenta. But have a look at this, folks. Can you feel those childhood traumas that followed you into your adult artistic career? Can you see them start to melt away? I can. I feel semi-healed already. Look at this. It's a dark purple, but I will prove the point in a minute by adding a little bit of white to this to show you something. And I'm not adding white in this square to lighten up. See, if I had a paler cyan there, this wouldn't be a really, really dark purple the way it is. But white is adding tone, a more tonal thing to your colour, and is deadening colour to make it more opaque as well. So if you're looking for vibrant colour, you don't want as much opacity. So it modifies the color in a more softens the color down sort of way when you add white. But we can certainly see when we add white what it looks like at a lighter shade. And this is part of the reason that watercolor works quite well for this. And your man's diagram is nice. I picked that diagram purposely because it shows the color mixes very nice in watercolor. But this is, you know, you can tell this is a much better purple we got going on. It doesn't have that weird browny, grey-y look to it. It's got a nice bouncy purple. And just in case it doesn't read properly on the screen, I'm going to show you what a tonal version of it looks like with a tiny little bit of white. Okay. Where did I put my, there. And I'm going to put the white well away from things over here. But I will do it over here. Look at that, you see? So you've got a mauvey color as opposed to the purples over here. Look at the purples. They're quite reddy looking. And even the one that's going towards the blue is a grayer, muckier thing than this. I'm not going to use this mix because, not on this one, because this doesn't rely on adding white into things. You could add another ring around it and put white into things to see how they look, you know, if you want all your diagrams to match perfectly. But so now we have our complementary colors. And I don't have much time left, but we will just discuss what happens in the inner circle. But we can also, I'll put this the right way up. We can see just by changing the shade of those primary colors, yellow, red, and blue, to different shades of blue and a different shade of red, a more cyan blue and a magenta, a more magenta red, that it solves our purple problem, and that the green, we can get a more intense green, because this green has that more greeny tendency anyway. The cyan green is more towards this side of the color wheel. So they're more satisfying colors basically when you do it like that. So it was worth doing those tweaks to the color wheel, but it was also worth doing the original color wheel, because the color wheel that they provided for you, that they show you online, and that, you know, I posted there. It's the second of the 3 photos I posted. They're all a bit of a lie. And the lie is all because of Isaac Newton. So, you know, don't blame Isaac Newton, because his experiment was a fabulous experiment, really interesting and groundbreaking and everything. Go and read up about it. It's very interesting. But you will get stuck if you get into color theory. It's really interesting, and you'll end up meeting all kinds of very interesting people doing fantastic experiments, and all kinds of artists working with color. And next week, what we're doing next week is we're putting some of this into practice in painting, doing a painting. Okay, so sorry, I'm just mixing up another little beginner magenta mix, because I'm going to go into one of these inner circles to show you something here. And we'll stay in the purple, because we're healing childhood traumas here, so we'll stay in the purple area. And we're going to do a red purple. Okay, so these two mix together. So we got our red mix and we got our purple mix, half and half. yeah, so next Friday, right? This is what's happening next Friday. You've got your color theory that we've been talking about for this live stream and the previous live stream kind of under your belts a bit. Now, if you didn't get to see both these live streams all the way through, don't worry, you'll still be able to understand what's going on. But oh yes, look at this color. This makes me so happy. This color, look at that. It's a lovely deep magenta, purpley magenta. So we're going to take two limited palettes, right? The Zorn palette, which to remind you is this one, right? With those three primary colors. And I will bring these charts along, so don't worry if you don't have these charts. You'll still see what I'm talking about because I'll show you what I'm talking about as I'm painting. So we're going to do one painting using just the Zorn palette as a challenge, and then another painting using this standard palette. Okay, now I don't know whether I'll restrict myself to the classic one that uses the wrong kinds of blues, or whether I'll do it with this one. I don't know. Because I hate dwelling on the problematic thing. So I think we'd be better off, rather than still dwelling on all the problems with that one, we'd be better off using this reference. Okay. So if you wanted to do something else towards painting along with me, and you were keen to do something in the meantime, this would be the diagram that would be very useful to you, and just skip doing that other standard diagram there. And if you don't have any of them, don't worry, you'll still be able to paint, and I'll be able to tell you um, what we're doing color wise, how we're doing the mixes, and how they relate to the Zorn or the standard palette. So two different paintings from two different palettes, basically. And it's an experiment to see what happens when we're using different palettes. Will the resulting painting look different, you see? So I will provide the resource materials as per usual, and it's going to be a still life. And I have the photo for that already. And it's going to try and bring in various different colors from the spectrum as a challenge. And it's going to be very enjoyable, because this puts that exercise will start putting into action what we're learning. And this is how you really solidify your learning, is by putting it into practice, because every time you put something into practice, you run into another little problem, and then you go, oh, why is that happening? And then you have to really have a think about that and figure out, well, oh, it's happening because this, that, and the other thing happening. Okay, so this is how these inner rings work. So it's those two mixed. So that is the next one is going to be your red and orange mixed in here, half and half. Orange and yellow mixed, half and half. Green and yellow mixed, half and half. So they are your tertiary colors. So the outer ring showed your primary colors, which were in this standard chart we have, rectified, tweaked standard. That was the one that didn't work terribly well, right? Or didn't work as advertised. This one is improved by the use of a cyan blue rather than an ultramarine or cobalt, and improved by using a kind of a magenta red rather than a cadmium kind of a red. And we were still working with the same kind of yellow, but they were our three primaries on this limited palette. Then we got our secondary colors by mixing two primaries together. So we mixed our yellow and red to get orange. We mixed our yellow and blue to get green, and we mixed our blue and red, or magenta in this case. We're calling it red because it's a type of red, but it's nearer to purple, isn't it? It's nearer to this end of the wheel. So we mix those to get purple. So we got our primary colours, our secondary colours, and our started filling in our tertiary colours there, which were mixed from a primary and a secondary. Okay. So you're going around the circle again, mixing those two and seeing what you get, mixing those two and seeing what you get. And this circular way of representing it is quite good because when you get in further, you're mixing more colours because you've still got this colour going all the way in. And in fact, with that one, that line is irrelevant, really. You can even rub it out. That line is irrelevant because this colour is extending all the way down there. And then it's just where they intersect here that you've got a few colours meeting. So you could figure out how to do the rest. And as I say, the diagram for that is over on the community tab to help you. So I will have that colour wheel with me for next week's session, and I will also have the Zorn Colour Wheel. And I bring that as well, just because there'll be some colours we run into that, you'll be saying, well, why did you use an ultramarine rather than a cyan blue for trying to get that colour? Because we'll discover that you might need more than one blue on your palette to exactly match a colour in your still life. And that's why limited palettes aren't in use everywhere. Most artists will have a cadmium red and an alizarin red, for example, in their little palette. And even Zorn had a blue in his palette and probably used an extra green as well sometimes, because they don't all, it's like trying to get a theory of everything, isn't it? They don't all work for everything, but it is good to understand how they do work as you're going along, and what's not working and why it's not working and what you can do to fix it. So I hope you did get something out of that, and I did want to show you how to actually do these for yourself, because as I say, you learn so much from doing them for yourself, because all that color you have to mix up just to be able to make these charts. And in the mixing up of them, you learn so much about controlling your brush flow, your mixes, getting enough of whatever medium you're using, whether it's water or terps, depending on what medium you're working with, and the getting the color matching as well. So you're learning as you're doing them rather than just buying a chart. And you wouldn't have known until you actually try to do this yourself, that segments of this don't work, and you wouldn't have been able to even, start to think about why that childhood trauma about purple occurred in the first place and how we solved it. So there you go. Enjoy the rich purple. And happy mixing, and maybe, have a go at those, or one of them, even if you don't get time to do them all, even that one would be useful. Or you might be somewhat familiar with this and be interested in trying the Zorn one. Instructions are there for that in the previous live stream. And if you don't get to time to, because I realize people have lives, and if you don't get time to do any of those, just bring yourself and something to paint with. Or just come and watch, and you do some painting yourself another time when you have time. And I will bring material for a still life, the photo for a still life. I'll provide that. and we'll work away next week and do a painting. And we get to actually use these colour schemes in a painting and see, well, how well do they apply to the real world, you know? So it's a bit of a challenge because I am going to try and limit myself to the colours in this palette. And we'll see if we run into problems with the colours, and if so, where with the colours, you know? Because I've done some stuff already that, you know, I think I wasn't working with the Zorn palette, but I'm thinking, yeah, one would think that was done with the Zorn palette because of the colours in it. But it just happened to be the selection of colours that the photographer take. That's done from a photograph, and the photographer taking that photograph happened to be working in a colour range which just suits the Zorn palette. And you can see me mixing up colours on this side. Um, so I don't think that subject would have been super challenging, but I've tried to create a challenging subject for next week so that it'll be an interesting challenge to work with the Zorn palette on one piece and then the standard palette on another piece, both limited palettes, you see. So we're working with very few colours and really working on our mixing skills. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I hope you got something out of this. Hope you enjoyed it. And see you for that one next week. Bye.